The light had changed from golden to a silver that implied that the stars above were watching as the Fae male led her into an abandoned village. Village might be too strong of a word. It was a cluster of cabins, some of them on the ground, some in the treetops, all of them blending into the forest as if they had grown from it. "What is this?" Gandrett turned and turned, craning her neck as she studied the partly crooked, partly straight walls and roofs that were made of wood and more wood, carpets of moss covering the roofs and the stairs that wound to the entrances. A few of the buildings hung tilted in the trees, as if lifted by growing branches. It was a sight that Gandrett would have never been able to dream up, not even in her wildest dreams. Beautiful and eerie at the same time. Eerie because there was no sign of life besides the chirps of crickets, which belonged to summer even though lonely snowflakes were floating in the air alongside some star-illuminated flower petals. Gandrett swallowed a lump that was forming in her throat. "What happened here?" It was the obvious question, but it seemed Nehelon had no obvious answer he wanted to share. "Let's find somewhere to rest our heads for the night." He didn't seem tired as he approached the closest of the buildings. With an elegant hand that reminded Gandrett yet again that he was royalty and not the Fae bastard she had believed him to be, Nehelon pushed on the door, stepping back as he let it fall open. There was no fear on his face when he finally turned to look at her, watching her as she still glanced from side to side, trying to take in the artwork that had to be a product of magic and nature working together. "There is no one in here," he said, finally disturbing her marveling. Was that amusement in his voice? For a moment, Gandrett thought that was what she'd heard in his words, but as she directed her eyes at him, his features were serious, partially glamoured, allowing her a glimpse of the beautiful face that lay beneath the handsome make-believe. And again, it struck her that there was something different with him. She tried to pin it down, but it eluded her, what it was that made Nehelon more and less like the cunning male she had met that first day. "Where did they all go?" Gandrett slowly walked up the 3 stairs that led to where Nehelon was standing on a porch-like platform that could have been nothing more than a wide branch. She inched past him, her hand back on her sword where it always went when she was about to turn the corner into a dark space she had never been before. From the meadow below them, Alvi whinnied. "I'll return to you in a moment," Nehelon reassured the horse, his tone so unlike the Nehelon who spoke to Gandrett. It was a softer, a more careful, however wrong it felt to think it, friendly Nehelon. Alvi stomped her hooves in response, while Nehelon followed Gandrett back to the door and placed his hand on her arm in a cautioning touch. "The cabins being empty of Fae," he murmured as he stepped closer, "doesn't mean there isn't anything else hiding in there." Gandrett shrugged, unwilling to admit he had a point, sliding her forearm out of his palm. "Let's see if anyone is here to greet us, then," she said, and stepped into the room, Nehelon at her heels, whose low growl had become so familiar she no longer felt the urge to jerk around and see if he was about to tear her apart with his glare. Instead, she waited for a short moment so her eyes adjusted to the dim light, and held her breath at the sight she beheld. There, behind a bed tucked into a corner of the single room, quivered a human shape that, judging by the size of it, couldn't be older than 8, maybe 10 years. The shape pressed itself into the shadows where the wooden walls formed a crooked corner that seemed to be made of bark, and from the twilight, a pair of bright, anxious eyes peered up at Gandrett, who had her sword drawn by instinct rather than better judgment. Nehelon squeezed past her, all tension from the past days of travel and forced silence peaking as he folded himself up at the end of the bed so he was level with the creature and said, "Don't be scared. We're not going to harm you." Goosebumps rose on Gandrett's arms and neck as Nehelon's voice trickled into the room, not harsh, not gentle, not like anything she had ever heard from his lips. Soothing and full of some emotion that she couldn't pinpoint. "Where are your parents?" he asked, and when the child didn't move, "My name is Nehelon." He gestured at himself, his hand slow, calming, smooth as he let it glide through the air over the bed. "And this is Gandrett." He gestured behind him at the armed warrior who was no longer Vala's blade, but a girl without loyalties to any deity. The shape moved forward, bringing into light a face so young that Gandrett was reminded just a little bit of the day she had been taken from her home. A child. A human child,